The March update for Destiny 2 has finally arrived, and it's brought a lot of changes, right? That's what everyone keeps saying, but what exactly are these changes, and what are the values associated with these changes? It's great to know pulse rifles are being buffed, but by how much for PvE or PvP? Are the archetypes affected, and if so, in what way? What exotics are affected? That's the stuff we're going to talk about in today's video, so let's get started. What is up, guys? Rickcacus here, and today we are going to go over literally all of the publicly available information on the March update. If you plan on getting back into Destiny 2, if you still play Destiny 2, but just want to know everything about this update, this is the video to watch. And so, let's get started. So, firstly, strikes. Nightfall unique rewards were added. The current Nightfall is the Pyramidian, and I've actually done a video showcasing that specific piece of strike loot and a little bit of a guide for how to get it yourself. Check that out if you haven't, but that's kind of gonna give you an idea of what type of strike loot is added. There's a couple of weapons. There's around 3 weapons. There's also some exotic ghost shells and some exotic sparrows, and each different Nightfall is going to have its own unique reward associated with it. Right now it's a weapon. Next week it could be an exotic ghost, right? It really does depend. So, according to the patch notes, drop rates for these items increase in likelihood based on score thresholds. Now, that word thresholds is very important. That means at certain milestones, somewhat similar to how you unlock the modifications for your Nightfall emblem, you're going to have an increased chance. It's probably very similar to those same scores. So at 40,000, you can unlock a certain emblem modification, at 60,000 another one, and at 80,000 you can unlock the last one. Likely those 3 thresholds are the same for increasing your chance to get these Nightfall items. Perhaps at 40,000, 5%, 60,000, 6% chance, 80,000, 10% chance. Let's say that's just completely hypothetical numbers, but that's how that system works. Moving on from there, strike repetition reduction. Players will no longer see the same strikes back-to-back in strike playlist. Thank goodness. Now for the challenge card, the power handicap maximum has been increased actually from 40 to 45. So if you are someone who is chasing that maximum possible score, which Bungie does show off in their weekly updates, you have a better chance to get an even higher score. Moving on from there, they fixed a bunch of issues involving glitches and strikes. For the Tree of Probabilities strike, wouldn't end immediately after Valus Thron's death if he was killed very quickly. They fixed that. They fixed an issue where players could respawn below the boss on a garden world. They fixed an issue where vehicles were not rewarding points when destroyed, and they fixed an issue where orbs granted points in public areas. Moving on from there, we have some general changes. So there's exotic repetition reduction, so you won't be able to get the same exotic back-to-back from exotic engrams. Also, they fixed an issue where some emblems were not displaying what statistic they track. The Prometheus lens now correctly appears in the exotic weapon collection for those players who bought it from Xur without owning Curse of Osiris. They reduced the interaction time for patrol beacons from 3 seconds to 1 second, so activating patrols a lot faster now. Fix an issue where applying or previewing a shader in an item would return players to the top page of the shader inventory. That's some general boring stuff. Let's get on to the big stuff and talk about the sandbox changes. So, for weapons, pulse rifles, this is a big one. So, pulse rifles had their PvE damage for all pulse rifles in the game increased by 16%. If there's any pulse rifles that you liked before, they're now doing 16% more damage in PvE. That's pretty darn good. Also, they increased the rate of fire for adaptive and high impact pulse rifles. For adaptive pulse rifles, these are pulse rifles with the adaptive frame intrinsic perk, they went from 360 rounds per minute to 390 rounds per minute. This is an increase of 8.3%, and that's going to result in a faster time to kill, which is actually a pretty big deal. Now for high impact pulse rifles, their rate of fire went from 320 to 340, which is a 6.3% increase. Now, adaptive includes exotics like the Graviton Lance, and high impact actually includes the Vigilance Wing. So the Vigilance Wing got a buff there. Moving on from there, they increased the base damage for adaptive, high impact, and rapid fire pulse rifles. Adaptive went from 14.5 to 16, a 10.3% increase. High impact went from 16 to 18, a 12.5% increase. And rapid fire pulse rifles went from 12 to 12.5, a 4.2% increase. So adaptive and high impact pulse rifles, you want to check out those pulse rifles with those intrinsic perks because they got pretty significant damage and also rate of fire increases. So they're going to be likely a lot more competitive. Moving on from there, they increased the precision multiplier for lightweight pulse rifles from 1.5 times to 1.6 times. This results in a 6.7% damage increase. And lastly, they decreased the precision multiplier for adaptive pulse rifles from 1.55 to 1.475, which is a 5.8% decrease. This is the only nerf to pulse rifles, and there's a design note essentially saying that adaptive pulse rifles are much better, but they had to lower the precision multiplier by just a little bit so they weren't too insane. And that's their reasoning at least. Moving on, we have scout rifles. So, Bungie increased the PvE damage for all scout rifles by 15%, which is kind of awesome because the Prosecutor, the Nameless Midnight, there were some extremely powerful PvE scouts that just got 15% better. Also, they increased the base damage for high impact scout rifles from 37 to 40, an 8.1% increase. Moving on from there, we have hand cannons. Firstly, they increased the PvE damage for all hand cannons by 15%. The Better Devil's already a favorite PvE masterwork weapon. It's 15% better. In addition, precision hand cannons deal 0.15 times more precision damage, increasing from 1.5 times to 1.6 times, which is a 6.6% increase. Also, they increased the hipfire accuracy when using controllers on console and PC by 33%. And they increased aim down sights accuracy when using controllers on console and PC by 25%. Those are some pretty significant numbers, 33% and 25%. And from what I hear, hand cannons are pretty dirty in the Crucible right now. Now moving on from there, sidearms. Firstly, they increased the PvE damage for all sidearms by 15%. There's a few, especially triple burst sidearms, that are actually going to benefit pretty significantly from this buff. After that, they increased the hipfire accuracy and reduced the cone by 20%. That's pretty significant. They increased the aim down sights accuracy and reduced the cone by 12%. They increased the inventory, allowing more reserve ammo to be stored, and increased the range fall off start by 1 meter. So, 1 meter is going to be added to your maximum damage potential when using sidearms. And they increased the aim down sights movement speed lastly. So sidearms got a lot of buffs. That's a lot of buffs. So stuff that was already pretty popular, like the Last Hope, that's going to get a lot more popular, I think. Now moving on from there, submachine guns. Firstly, they increased PvE damage for all submachine guns by 10%. So this is actually one of the lesser buffs. They set optics to 1.3 times, and lastly, they increased inventory, allowing more reserve ammo to be stored. Now that last point is probably the biggest buff for PvE. One of the greatest downsides of using an SMG in a PvE environment was that it ran out of ammo so fast, especially the 900 rounds per minute ones. This will now actually let you utilize an SMG, and you're also getting a 10% damage bonus on top of that. Moving on, linear fusion rifles. Increased PvE damage for all linear fusion rifles by 50%. That's insane. 50% more damage that every linear fusion rifle is dealing across the board in PvE. Guys, it's time to break out your linear fusion rifles, cause wow. Also, they increased the aim assist and decreased the flinch multiplier, so they're just going to be easier to use all over the place in D2. Moving on from there, we have shotguns. Firstly, they increased the PvE damage for all shotguns by 35%. Guys, let's stop here for a sec. That's insane. That's probably one of the most insane changes I think is going under people's radar, because they're already very good shotguns for PvE. The Hawthorne's Field Forge shotgun, the Perfect Paradox, these were legitimately used in strikes, in public events, and they did a ton of damage. 35% damage increase to these guns. That is actually going to be insane. So get out your Hawthorne's Field Forged, get out your Perfect Paradox. Those things are going to be ripping through enemies now. Also, they increase the inventory, allowing more ammo to be stowed in reserve. That's even better. And they increase the aim assist on Suros precision shotguns. That's going to matter more for PvP. Moving on from there, we have sniper rifles. So they increase the PvE damage on snipers by 20% for yellow bar enemies. So against bosses and so on, a 20% damage bonus is still pretty decent, and by 40% for red bar enemies. So you're going to be able to one-shot a lot of those red bar enemies. Also, they increased precision damage, which now scales with the weapon's rate of fire. So change from 2.5 times for everything to 3.0 times at the lowest rate of fire, so the highest damaging archetype, and up to 3.5 times at the highest rate of fire. So that's something like the Alone as a God. So the Alone as a God is now getting 20% more damage against yellow bars, 40% more against red bars, and went from a 2.5 precision multiplier to a 3.5. That seems really, really good. Snipers, if you landed literally every shot, were out DPSing, or at least matching, rocket launchers with cluster bombs against Callus. So we've got some testing to do, because snipers are a lot better now. Also, they increased the aim assist of snipers and increased the inventory as well on snipers. Now moving on, we have grenade launchers. Firstly, they increased the blast radius. For drum-fed grenade launchers, they increased it by half a meter, and for one-shot grenade launchers, they increased that by 1 meter. Keep that in mind when we move on to further buffs, but that was the only thing done to grenade launchers. Next up, the Mida Mini Tool got some changes. They decreased the Mida Mini Tool's optics to match other SMGs. They prevented the stacking of lightweight and the Mida Mini Tool's lightweight perks. So that's actually really unfortunate. Before this update, using the Mida Multi-Tool and the Mida Mini-Tool, it would stack with lightweight and you got the fastest movement speed you could possibly get. In the Go Faster update, they nerfed this, which kind of doesn't make any sense, but there you have it. Also, they adjusted the player movement speed to match the Mida Mini-Tool. Also, auto rifles. They decreased the range by 10 for all precision auto rifles, and decrease the aim assist for all precision auto rifles. So hopefully stuff like the Uriel's Gift and so on will not be as prominent in PvP. I frankly think with all of these other buffs, they might not have even needed to touch auto rifles, but here we are. Moving on from there, we got some changes to perks, specific perks in Destiny 2. So, firstly, they scaled up the PvE damage for the following perks. High Impact Reserves now make your damage go from 1.12 times to 1.3 times, a 16% damage increase. So if you still have the number, the Future War Cult auto rifle, you may want to check that out. Also, Kill Clip. The damage increase is going from 1.33 times to 1.53 times. That's a 15% damage increase. And lastly, Rampage. From 1.33 times at 3 stacks, it's going to 1.65 times while at 3 stacks. Also, they increase the duration these stacks last from 3 seconds to 3.5 seconds. Guys, Rampage and Kill Clip were already top tier PvE perks, and they're now even better. So, especially look out for stuff like pulse rifles and so on with Rampage. Those got a lot better. Moving on, the Dragonfly perk. firstly, they buffed the damage from 50 to 65, a 30% increase. I think that is going to need to go even higher. Now, they also added 30% additional damage against combatants, and they updated the effects of Dragonfly. Now, moving on from there, explosive rounds. They decreased PvE explosive rounds damage multiplier by 15% and increased the PvE damage of the base weapons to compensate. So, explosive rounds, still good, but basically it's not more good after this update. After that, Grave Robber. Now it reloads 50% of your magazine instead of 30%, so that's a pretty big increase. And Timed Payload. The split damage was 55-45 explosive / direct instead of the previous split that was more direct damage. So Timed Payload, which is on that one Future War Cult hand cannon, that's actually going to be better now because it has more damage in the explosive round side of things, which is generally what you want. Now, moving on from there, we still have quite a bit to go. So, for the abilities, they increased super regeneration rates from 6 minutes and 40 seconds. So if you're standing still, it would take 6 minutes and 40 seconds to regenerate your super. Now that's down to 5 minutes. So your super statically is recharging quite a bit faster. The output of every increment of the mobility stat from 2 to 10 has been increased, allowing for a significant boost in player speed. Also, Vanishing Step, the invisibility upon dodging, and Vanish in Smoke, Smoke Bomb invisibility have been changed in the following ways. Dodging remains unchanged and still breaks both aim assist and projectile tracking for the duration of the actual dodge. But the invisibility granted by Vanishing Step no longer breaks aim assist or projectile tracking in PvP, it's unchanged in PvE. Increase the duration of invisibility granted by Vanishing Step by 1 second, and increase the duration of Smoke Bomb invisibility by 1 second. So invisibility actually lasts longer by a whole second, but you aren't going to break aim assist and projectile tracking just by going invisible, you are by dodging. So that's just a little bit of a change, a little bit of a nerf to especially Night Stalker hunters. Now, they increased the movement speed of melee supers. So Fist of Havoc and Sentinel Shield and Arc Staff all got an increase with this buff. So while these supers are active, sprint speed is automatically set to the fastest possible sprint speed. No additional perks needed. That's pretty interesting. Characters automatically sprint when you request forward movement, and they increase the movement acceleration to reach max speed almost immediately. So watch out for those 3 different supers, especially in PvP, because you're going to be able to move a lot faster. Moving on from there, we have the buffs to the Titan class. So, firstly, they increased the distance the player travels with an untargeted airborne shoulder charge attack back to 4.5 meters. This affects Shield Bash and Seismic Strike and Hammer Strike. Guys, I've been playing with Titan, it feels great. You can dodge around corners, you can dodge to hit a jump you were gonna miss, you can dodge out of danger, it's fantastic. Now for the lift stuff, Strafe Lift, increase the top speed of Strafe Lift and Catapult Lift, increase the initial horizontal acceleration gained from activating Catapult Lift. That's very interesting. Also, they increase the amount of time Catapult Lift can be activated to allow for more control. So potentially, Catapult Lift is going to make Titan skating possible again. Now, moving on, we have the Hunter class. So firstly, for Arc Staff, they increase the speed of the Arc Staff dodge animation. They increase the speed of all Arc Staff attack animations. And for Arc Staff Super Cast animation and all Arc Staff melee attacks, they reduce the amount of time you're locked in animations before you can move or attack. And lastly, they increase the area of effect range of all Arc Staff attacks. So Arc Staff got a bunch of buffs. It was already pretty disgusting in PvE, frankly. But now in PvP, I think a lot more people are going to be running it. Moving on, we have Warlock. So, for the Glide, overall, they increased the initial extension of vertical speed gained from activating Glide to allow for quick, on-demand bursts of speed. Moving on to Strafe Glide, they increased the top speed of Strafe Glide, greatly increased the horizontal acceleration of Strafe Glide to allow for more in-air maneuverability, and increased Strafe Glide's max height to match the other vertical movements. For Burst Glide, they greatly increased the top speed of Burst Glide, higher than Strafe Glide's top speed, and for Balanced Glide, they recalibrated Balanced Glide to gain some of the added speed of Burst Glide and some of the added horizontal acceleration of Strafe Glide. And guys, I've actually seen some gameplay of people Warlock skating in D2. If you do it properly, you can go so fast that if you hit a wall, you'll die. Your movement speed is so high that it will kill you if you come in contact with an object. So keep that in mind. Moving on from there, Dawnblade got several buffs. So, decreased the cost of throwing sword projectiles with the Daybreak Super, allowing for one additional throw. One more throw equals one more opponent dead, one more, strike against a boss. That's actually a big deal. Moving on from there, increased the super duration extension gained from the Everlasting Flames perk. So it's around a 20% increase. The buff granted by the Swift Strike melee ability now removes all in-air accuracy penalties while active. Wow. Also decreased the Icarus Dash cooldown from 10 seconds to 6 seconds. That is nearly a 50% decrease. Like, Icarus Dash is a very powerful ability. Now you're going to be able to use that a lot more often. Also, lastly, they increase the grenade and melee energy that Heat Rises gives you per kill from 10% to 16%. So guys, I would definitely check out Dawnblade. This sounds like some pretty significant buffs. I'm going to be checking it out for sure. Moving on from there, they fixed an issue where players could throw infinite Nova Bombs in Mayhem. Thank goodness. Now, moving on from there, mods. So, mods that affect ability regen rates for grenades, melee, or class abilities now have an increased output, 16.66 repeating percent per mod. They still cap at 3 mods for a 50% regen rate. So if you're using all 3 grenade recharge mods for your character, your grenades recharge twice as fast. And again, I've been playing Titan, especially when I was grinding Nightfalls to try to get the Nightfall exclusive loot. Double pulse grenades with 50% decreased recharge rate is pretty disgusting, I'm just gonna say. Moving on from there, some Crucible changes. So, the weekly featured Crucible playlist was added. This is either going to be Rumble, Mayhem, or Iron Banner when it does arrive. Remember the next Iron Banner? Well, we'll talk about that actually in just a bit. So, Crucible repetition reduction has also been added, so you can't get the same Crucible map in Quick Play, Competitive, or Iron Banner playlists. Great. Quitter penalties have been introduced. Incomplete matches in competitive Crucible playlist will now result in a warning or a temporary 30-minute suspension from competitive and Osiris competitive playlists. Also, they added an invisible physics and kill volumes to keep players inside the intended playable area on a number of maps, so you can't glitch out of maps anymore. Well, hopefully, next Iron Banner. So, pretty significant changes to Iron Banner. The most significant one is that Iron Banner is now 6v6. The time limit is 12 minutes. The score limit is 125 points. Respawn time is 7 seconds. All control zones start off neutral. That's actually pretty interesting. Additional Guardians, maximum of 3, in a zone increase the capture speed. The Emperor's Respite has now been removed from the Iron Banner control playlist. Okay. Power ammo. Recurring side crate respawn times reduced from 90 seconds to 45 seconds. And initial side crate respawn times reduced from 90 seconds to 30 seconds. So, power ammo is going to spawn a lot more often in the Iron Banner as well. And we're going to see those same kind of changes all across the Crucible. Now for Crucible gameplay and ammo improvements. Quick play, so Clash, Control, and Supremacy, match length has been extended to 10 minutes with score limits adjusted accordingly. Moving on from there, changes to all Crucible modes. Increased assist and kill credit time from 2 seconds to 2.5 seconds. increased super energy granted to players for both kills and assists. That's a big deal there. Now moving on, players who are defeated while carrying power ammo will lose all of their power ammo and drop 50% of it on the ground as a brick. The brick is visible to all players and anyone can pick it up, on your team or the enemy team. The brick expires after 30 seconds and the brick requires a full 0.25 second interaction instead of a passive walkover. This interaction can be interrupted if the player takes damage. I think that's a good change. You have to go over the brick and purposely pick it up. This is going to allow you to designate which teammates get the brick. You don't just have someone with, all power ammo and they just used one shot picking up the brick and getting that one shot back. You can give it to teammates who actually need that brick, and I think that's a really good change. Okay, moving on from there, quick play. So for all modes, we talked about match length has been extended to 10 minutes. The respawn time for all quick play game modes has gone from 5 seconds to 2 seconds. Recurring side crate respawn times for power ammo reduced from 90 seconds to 60 seconds. Neutral crates for Clash and Supremacy are unchanged. The player super display has been removed from the HUD. Players can still access this information in the death screen, and while in the nav mode, their ghost is out, and the player super display remains unchanged in competitive. Now for control, reduce the initial side crate power ammo respawn times from 90 seconds to 30 seconds, so control is going to be lit for power ammo. Change the amounts of super energy players get for capturing zones. Players on the capturing team get slightly less than before, what the heck? Players participating in the capture itself get 2 times that amount. Okay, that seems decent. Then for Clash and Supremacy, initial side crate power ammo spawns reduced from 90 to 60 seconds. So again, power ammo, so much more abundant pretty much everywhere. Now for competitive modes, including Trials of the 9. For all modes, the tracker is now turned off. One of the most controversial changes. So designer note, this is to enable more flanking and expression of individual power. We'll see if that works. Survival. Reduced recurring neutral crate respawn times from 75 seconds to 45 seconds. Reduced respawn time to 7 seconds. So survival is going to be a little bit more action-packed now. Countdown. Reduced recurring side crate respawns from 60 to 45 seconds. Lowered the revive lockout time from 20 seconds to 7 seconds. That's a big deal. Players no longer lose revive tokens on death. So countdown, a lot more lit. Now for Crucible power ammo crates. This is really important. If you've made it to the very end of the video, I applaud you guys because there's a lot of information, but this is going to give you an edge in the Crucible in choosing what weapons to use, okay? So firstly, rockets. They were 2 rockets, now they're just 1 rocket for a power ammo crate. Next, drum-fed grenade launchers. That stays at 4 rounds. So Colony, still 4 rounds. But single-shot grenade launchers. It was 4 grenades for power ammo, now you get 6 grenades, but it may be capped by weapon inventory size. So actually single-shot grenade launchers got a lot better. Sniper rifles. Now it's 6 shots per brick, and it was a variable 2 magazines capped at 6. Next up, shotguns. Now it's 5 shots for a shotgun pull. Last time it was 2 mags capped at 4. So shotguns, you're getting 1 additional shot for a power ammo brick. Next up, slug shotguns. Actually now are 6 shots. Before it was capped at 4. So Suros precision shotguns, especially the last Iron Banner one, which is the best one, maybe check those out. Next up, fusion rifles. Now you get 5 bursts every single time, and before it was variable between 4 to 5 shots based on the magazine size. Wardcliffe coil does stay at 1 volley, don't worry. Swords, interestingly, now it's 6 swings, but before it was 30% of total energy capped at 9 swings. So swords got a nerf for whatever reason. Moving on from there, linear fusion rifles. Now it's 4 shots, and it was 2 magazines capped at 6. So linear fusion rifles are more powerful, definitely, but their ammo availability is a little bit less. Moving on from there. This is a big one, guys. The Prospector exotic grenade launcher gets 8 rounds per power ammo brick, up from 4. 8 rounds. That is a lot of grenades. And even though its grenades bounce around, it's not super highly used, basically not used at all in PvP, it's hard to turn down 8 rounds. So this thing, definitely give it a try, at least for the memes. Moving on from there, the Legend of Acreus is now always going to get 4 shots. It was variable 2 megs, capped at 4. The Tractor Cannon now gets 6 shots. It was previously 2 megs, capped at 4. The Colony stays at 4 shots. The Darcy, guys, the Darcy Sniper Rifle, you get 8 shots. 8 sniper shots using this exotic. It was capped at 6 before. And same with the Borealis. The Borealis Sniper Rifle, 8 shots. It was previously capped at 6. The Borealis especially, it's actually a high damage sniper that has a 5-round magazine. It's insanely powerful. Like, you're going to be one-hit killing anyone. So, if you're a sniper, if you're someone who enjoys sniper rifles, seriously take a look at the Darcy or the Borealis exotic sniper rifles, because 8 shots per power ammo brick is absolutely absurd. That's 2 more than any other sniper rifle. And guys, that is it for all of the publicly available information on this update. Again, if you've made it this far, thanks for tuning in for this whole video. I know it's definitely long, and at some points I'm sure you're like, oh my gosh, it's still going, but now you're completely informed. You know everything that's in this update, and now you pretty much know the new meta. You know what exotics to be checking out, what game modes are going to be lit for power ammo, and all of that stuff. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. Now, if you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.